Hey everyone, it's Joelle here, and today I'm doing a long-awaited video. This is going to be both a July and August wrap-up. Sorry I've been kind of MIA dealing with some personal stuff, but yeah, I did manage to listen to some good audiobooks and actually read a physical copy. What? Yeah, so first and foremost, I'm gonna start off with a really big fail of a buddy read. My good friend Cody at Cody's Book Corner, which will be linked down in the description box, we decided we would read not Alice, The Mermaid by Christina Henry. Sorry, it's like morning and stuff, so I'm like not quite awake. Anyways, I had gifted her the book Mermaid, and I absolutely love Christina Henry. She's become a big Christina Henry reader now that I first introduced her to Christina Henry's world, and I believe she has now read all of the Christina Henry, whereas I still have 1.5 books to read, and I say half because I totally failed reading this book here. I just didn't like it, and I don't know if it's because I've been listening to and reading a lot of thriller and horror lately that just wasn't dark enough for me. I wanted it to be more gruesome, and maybe it would get like that, but based on her kind of review of it, I don't think it really got that way. But basically, long story short, it follows a fisherman who finds a mermaid. They fall in love. He goes missing. She's really sad and depressed, and then ends up going to New York to go work for P.T. Barnum in his oddities show. So that was pretty much it. Didn't get very far, and then a tragedy happened. Yes, see this sad tragedy? It rained really bad one night, and I had this sitting on my windowsill, and my windows leaked. So, not only did I DNF this book, but it's also kind of destroyed, and I don't really know what to do with it. I think I'm going to just put it in between some books on my shelf and hope that it gets salvaged. But I was so mad when I saw that the morning after it rained. I was pissed, but that's besides the point. Let's get into the books that I did actually complete in July. The very first one was Record of a Spaceborne Few by Becky Chambers. This is the third book in the Wayfarers series. I gave this a 4 out of 5. This was the first book that I completed in July. I have no idea what it actually was about anymore. I know there was a lot of controversy between people who lived on the planet versus people who lived in space on a ship. I know there was some back and forth between one alien versus like a different alien race. There was some kind of like murder investigation, and then there was some like family stuff. I don't remember it. All I know is that out of that trilogy so far, I believe there's going to be more of them. The second book was the best, A Close and Common Orbit. I think that's the second one. Yeah. That one was the best one. This one, I mean, I did do it on audio, and the narrator did a great job. It's just that the storyline didn't really hold my interest enough. So yeah, that's that. Next was Growing Things and Other Stories by Paul Tremblay. I gave this a 5 out of 5. I did listen to this on audio, and it was super fast. I think that if I would have done it again, I would have read a physical copy of it, which I may sometime in the future do. Who knows? I got a lot of books to read. But one standout story. Now, this is like a collection of short stories that are like spooky. Were they actually scary? But there was one story that stood out to me. I deal with a lot of dogs on a daily basis. I also deal with a lot of dog walkers. Some of them are really weird. Some of them seem normal. But there's a story called Notes from Dog Walkers that is by far my favorite story out of the entire collection. Think WAG. Like, I don't know if you guys have heard of WAG before. It's a service we have in the United States where people can get a dog walker via an app, and the person goes, they take the app, they take care of the dog, then they leave notes in the app. Yeah, all I could think about was the people that I deal with and their dog walkers, and there's just some weird shit. Like there were 3 different dog walkers that rotated with this dog for an author, and one of them was like super political. One of them was just like a weird lady who was like kind of like snooping in the house, and the other one was like this big dude who was just kind of trying to find himself. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Paul Tremblay is becoming one of my favorite authors. Absolutely love Head Full of Ghosts. One of the short stories is kind of like a spin-off of A Head Full of Ghosts, so that was cool to see those characters again. Overall, loved it. Loved Paul Tremblay. 5 out of 5. Next was Something Wicked This Way Comes by Ray Bradbury. And actually, I have a physical copy of it down there on my shelf, but I did listen to it on audio. I was just craving something different. I'd been listening to a lot of Paul Tremblay, and I wanted to go into a story that from an author who is known for horror or known for thrillers, and from a different time, a different era. And the best part about this book is that, you know, we're following Jim and his friend and everything, and they're just like kids. They ride bikes, they explore, they play outside and all of that kind of stuff. And I miss that so much in society because, like, kids are always on their phones. They're always, like, texting or playing video games and staying inside. And when I was a kid in the 80s and 90s, we played outside. Yeah, we had video games and the start of, like, home PCs, but we had to play outside. Or we played inside, but we still, like, played together. Like, we played school and restaurant and, you know, hide and seek, whatever. So I love that I got a little bit of kids being kids. This story basically follows Jim and his friend, and this weird circus comes into town. It's not really a circus, it's like a traveling carnival kind of thing. And they get really intrigued by it, and they witness some weird shit that happens, and so they're kind of obsessed with it. But then also the main, like, ringleader of it is also kind of obsessed with finding the kids. It's really neat. The other thing about it is that Jim has he calls him his dad, but it's like his stepdad. And, well, is it his dad? I think it's his, I can't remember. But anyway, he's significantly older. Like, he's in his, like, 50s while Jim is, like, a kid. So it also follows a little bit of the relationship, of the father-son relationship, but I really liked that aspect of it, too. Overall, I think I'm going to continue my Ray Bradbury. I went through a phase where I just bought a bunch of Ray Bradbury books. I think I'm going to continue reading them. I didn't realize that this was, like, part of a series and it's number 2. But, yeah, it's a standalone to me. I really enjoyed it. Next, we are in the last book of July, and that was Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. And I actually have a physical copy because my wonderful wife bought it for me one day, but I didn't read the physical copy. I listened to the audio, and my mom read the physical copy. I love that my mom loves, like, thriller books too, because we oftentimes talk about them. But anyway, this follows a girl, and her name is Jules, and she gets a job apartment sitting in a luxury old apartment building in New York City that is like a dream come true job. She's getting paid like ridiculous amounts of money to basically just sit in an apartment and occupy it because the building has a reputation of being full. So they don't want to like give off the wrong idea that they have like vacancies. It was really interesting knowing a lot about the apartment industry and kind of like the relationship between tenants and landlords. It was kind of really cool to see that. Twists in the book that make it like thrillery. One of them I totally called. The other one I was like, what the fuck? And even my mom was like, I didn't see that one coming. But the other one, we were both like, yeah, we totally saw that coming. Riley Sager in general is a good author. I gave it a 4 out of 5 just because it's like predictable, and I like the writing style, don't get me wrong, but it was just predictable. And maybe it's because I read a lot of thrillers, but I just found it to be really predictable. Now let's get into August. The first one I listened to on audio was Battle Royale by Kushan Takami. This follows a class. This is a classic book. I mean, this came out like forever ago, and there's actually a movie, which I'll get into that in a minute. This basically follows Asia. It's an Asian country. I'm pretty sure it's Japan. Some kind of thing happens to where there's this like battle royale where they basically every year they select a random middle school. They call it middle school, but they're actually like 15-ish age kids who are sent to go off on an island and basically battle to the death until there's one remaining survivor. Think Hunger Games, Lord of the Flies, Hunger Games-ish kind of stuff. I mean, this came way before the Hunger Games, so I could see where Hunger Games was very strongly inspired by this story. We have a couple of main characters in here. One of the main characters really doesn't want to kill anyone, but then we also follow there's like 40 something people. I think there's like 42 of them. So you kind of follow like each one of them and their deaths and everything. And there's actually like one character who she's kind of like bad, but I totally get where she's coming from. And I don't know if that just makes me weird or creepy or what, but like I totally get where she's coming from. I liked it a lot. In the middle of listening to the audiobook, I found the movie on YouTube. Actually, somebody has like illegally put it on YouTube and watched the whole thing. So yeah, it kind of ruined the book for me. I kind of like sped listened to the end. Watching the movie though, the movie adaptation was pretty close to it, but overall, like the book was good. It just was very like, it had more filler stuff in it than the movie did, but and there was some changes in it in the movie versus the book, but I actually really liked it. Interesting. I love reading from different culture perspectives, so I liked that one a lot. I love like kids fighting kids. It's creepy weird. Next was 2 5 out of 5 books by Blake Crouch. First one was Dark Matter. Second one was Recursion. Again, I blame Cody for these. I saw them on her bookshelf and wanted to read them, and then she ended up doing Recursion at the same time, so it kind of happened that way. But anyway, Dark Matter is about Jason, who basically both of these books deal very heavily with like the mind, and they're sci-fi, so it's a lot of like mind and like neurology and that kind of stuff. So the first book, Dark Matter, is about Jason, who has created this box, this like random box that has doorways to like a bazillion infinity on alternative universes. So there's like a Jason in each one of them, and he is basically another version of himself comes to his world and kind of like steals his identity, and then he's on the run, but he goes into the box as his way out on the run, and he's going through all these different parallel universes with all these different parallel versions of himself just to get back to his wife and his kid. And all he wants is to get back to his wife and his kid. And I really, really like this story because I love the idea of parallel universes and like people stealing identities and stuff like that. The writing was fantastic. A lot of it was above my head because I'm not a very science-oriented person, but I really liked it. And then the second one, Recursion, they're not like linked in any way. It's about Helena, and she basically wants to study something called false memory syndrome, which basically is, well, backtrack. I think her mom has like Asperger, or not Asperger's, really Joelle, Alzheimer's, and is dealing with memory loss and things like that. So she studies like neuroscience to try and help her mom, but in her trying to do that, she creates this machine thing, which basically allows people to go back into memories and relive a timeline via memory. So there's this like whole phenomenon of false memory syndrome where the worlds are basically like, once you reset a timeline, everybody is affected by it, and they feel like they have these like memories, but they can't decide if it's a real memory or a different version of that memory. Kind of confusing, but I really liked it. But then after that, I was like, I can't listen to or read any more things about memory because it was too much at once. But yeah, I would totally recommend them if you like sci-fi. And next was like my favorite book of arguably of the year so far, and that's Turning the Key by Ruth Ware. I gave it a 5 out of 5. Yeah, was not expecting to absolutely love this book as much as I did. I did the audio in one day because I loved it that much. This follows Rowan. She gets a job as a nanny at this very like cool house that's super hype on technology, but it's an old house. So there's all these like touchpads and everything and all this technology where the parents can like watch in on things and listen in on things. Basically, without giving too much away, this is explained at the beginning of the story. We are getting the perspective of Rowan in prison because she is accused of killing one of the kids. And she is writing letters to an attorney, which they call them a solicitor in the United Kingdom. This actually happens in Scotland, but she's from England. But anyway, she's in the UK, which I love UK, yay. But anyway, she's trying to get a new solicitor because her current one just doesn't believe her, thinks she's crazy and everything. So she's trying to write to this other one that all these women in prison recommended for her. So she's telling her side of the story and she wants the guy to read it. So we're getting these stories. We're getting the story, but then every now and then you can tell it's still a letter. I loved this. I did not see the twists coming, which I needed because there are so many times when I read or listen to a thriller and I can predict it, and then it ruins the whole thing for me. I didn't predict this at all. Excuse me. I didn't predict it, and I loved it. It was so good. It was just so good. Like, I totally recommend it. The other Ruth Ware books are like, meh. This one was good. Go read it. The next one, this is where I have my proud moment. I read a physical book, damn it. And I'm super proud of it because it's like the skinniest book on my shelf. And that was The Last One by Alexandra Olivia. Sorry, I was trying to read it backwards. Alexandra Olivia. This one, I blame Harriet, and I will post her down in the description box. This follows a main character. Her name is Zoo. And Zoo, yeah. So she is in a reality show, which is much like Naked and Afraid meets Survivor. Basically, she goes off on this reality show. She's a zookeeper, and there's all these different crazy personalities, and they have to do these challenges and stuff where they have to survive in the premise of the reality show is that there's been some kind of apocalypse, and you have to survive post-apocalyptic. But here's the twist, which is actually revealed very much in the beginning, is that there actually was an apocalypse in the world, and they have no idea that that is happening while this is going on. So the whole time, she is in this reality show, and she thinks that it's fake, but she's really in an apocalypse, and it was so good. Like, I actually really, really enjoyed it to the point where I stayed up really late at night finishing this. And I gave it a 3.5 out of 5, mainly because the ending was like left to be desired, and also like there were moments where it just dragged on a little bit, but overall I loved the concept of this story. It's a quick read. I mean, it was only 294 pages. So I really enjoyed it. If there's another one, I'll probably read it because if it continues, that'd be cool. I don't know if it's going to continue though, but overall I really liked this one. The next one was a random audiobook. I was looking through my Libby app for thrillers, and I came across Good Enough Mother by Bev Thomas. This I gave a 3.5 out of 5 because it was just an okay thriller. This follows a psychiatrist who deals with patients after PTSD grief scenarios, and she only gives them 6 sessions to get over it, basically. Like, I mean, that sounds awful, but they get 6 sessions. But sadly, in her real life, she had twins, and one of her twins went missing, and his name was Tom. She's kind of obsessed with him. He was like her favorite kid. So she's kind of dealing with that with her other daughter, but then also she gets a patient that comes in that reminds her so much of her son that she kind of like doesn't do her job the way she is supposed to because of that, and it affects her job significantly. But it was okay. I mean, you know, would I recommend it? Yeah, I'd recommend him. I told my mom about it. But I mean, I maybe would read another Bev Thomas book, but it wasn't like the best thriller ever. Yeah, that was it. I guess that's it. So that was the last one. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. I'm like looking at my list and I'm like, yeah, and the next one, no. Because then it became September and I started new books. So overall, I had there goes my notebook. There goes that book. But anyway, I had a pretty decent couple of reading months, lots of thriller and sci-fi in there too. But yeah, let me know if you've read any of these books or listened to them audio. Let me know if you recommend any thriller, horror authors, sci-fi authors that you think based on these ones that I might like. Really love female UK authors that are cops. So anything like that, please recommend. I may have already listened to it or read it, but yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching this. Sorry it was long, 21 minutes. I don't edit, so you get the full shebang. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. My social media links will be in the description box. If you want to know more about these books or like a one-off video of it, let me know. I'm happy to do that. I hope everybody had an awesome reading couple of months. I know I've watched quite a few wrap-ups, but yeah. I also rearranged my bookshelves. There's only one over here. My bed is right there now. Boop. And I rearranged all of this. So if you guys want to see a book tour, happy to do that too. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. See y'all on the next one. Okay, bye.